Okay, so hi, my name is Limor Albaz and I'm the founder of Peerlyst, and I have today Neha Thethi with me. Neha, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us on video.
It's my pleasure, Limor, and it's very nice to meet you and see you for the first time.
Thank you, you too. So Neha, we're going to talk today about your expertise, forensics in the cloud. And I wanted to first, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your role and your responsibilities and kind of this domain.
My name is Neha Thethi, as Limor introduced, and I work as an information security analyst at a company called BH Consulting, which is an independent information security consulting firm based in Dublin, in Ireland. What I do is we do security risk assessments. We have times to manage and implement their ISMS, specifically using ISO 27001, but obviously we'd help them with other standards too. Um, and my specialization or my PhD is in cloud forensics. So that is what I focus on most of my days.
Okay, great. So we chatted a bit beforehand, and I understand you have a special interest in security in the cloud. Maybe you can share with us some of the security concerns for companies that host data or application or both in the cloud.
Sure. So in June of 2013, the CSA published a report, an interesting name, so they called it the Notorious Nine, where it sums up the critical issues that are present with cloud security. So it specifically focuses on the shared and on-demand nature of auditing. The top threat that, according to the CSA report, was data breaches, and they also identified other threats such as data loss, then denial of service, shared technology, the problems due to the shared technology, and also other abuse of cloud services. So these are some of the issues that they highlighted, and obviously the data breaches that we've seen in the past. So since 2014, we have seen an increase in these data breaches. And, but if we look closely, most of these breaches were not due to the weaknesses within the cloud or the data center. Uh, they were due to weaknesses at the endpoint, so either the user laptop or maybe the payment terminal or third parties. So for example, the target breach that was due to the compromise of the HVAC system, and that was the vendor of Target. So, so basically, if a company has an application in a well-known cloud provider, AWS, so the chances are that it is highly likely that there is a vulnerability in the application of that company rather than the infrastructure of the cloud provider. So basically, it's a shared responsibility, and you can't just put all the responsibility on the cloud provider. And so users or the company, they have to be more aware and they have to be careful when they're using their devices, their applications, and so yeah, be aware of their responsibility.
By the way, is this something that is the nature of this vulnerability? You think related to the fact that these applications are hosted in a multi-tenant environment, or regardless, there might be a vulnerability in the application, and when in the cloud, it's more risky.
So multi-tenancy is the specific characteristic of the cloud. The applications could be hosted, say if you host that application in your traditional or on-premise environment, that application could have the same vulnerability as when you host it in the cloud. So that's more application specific. Multi-tenancy is more a cloud-specific problem. So in multi-tenancy, the data of several tenants or customers is being hosted on the same physical machine, say. So if an investigator acquires that data from that physical hardware, they get information of multiple tenants. So that has privacy issues. So that's why usually in the cloud they acquire the evidence forensically rather than taking an image of that hardware or physical machine. So to answer your question, the multi-tenancy is more a cloud-specific problem, but the vulnerabilities in the application can be the same either in on-premise or if it's in the cloud. So yeah, it's more an application problem.
I see. So do you think overall criminals have an easier or harder life attacking applications that are in the cloud?
So it depends. So the cloud can either be used as a target, or it can be used as an instrument to commit the crime, or it can just be used as a support. So say you have some evidence in the cloud, but there are other devices used as well. And this is the same as even if you have HPC, you could either use it as a target or as an instrument for the crime. Or it can be a combination of.
Oh, we lost you for a second.
The Zeus banking malware. Yeah.
Neha, we just lost you for the audio for a second. Could you just repeat the last sentence?
Okay, so will I repeat from? Okay,
just the last sentence. The audio was just not good.
Cool. Okay, so for example, we had the infamous Zeus banking malware.
Yeah.
So it had infected client computers after hackers had apparently compromised a site on EC2. So that is the example of the cloud being a target. So the application was a target. And then what they did was they used it as a command and control. So in that case, it's used as an instrument. So it can be a combination. And so does it make life easier or harder for the criminals? So on one hand, it makes life a lot easier because they have the high computing power at a very low cost at their disposal, and instances can be deprovisioned very, very quickly. And also, if there's data and they delete the data, it is hard to acquire that data as well. So these things make it easier for them, harder for the investigators. On the other hand, it is harder in a sense because if you look at the bigger or reputed cloud providers, have very high level of security. So to infiltrate their infrastructure is a very big challenge.
Much harder.
That's why they go to, the application vulnerabilities. They go through that route usually. So yeah, so it depends. And also if there is any malicious data, so malicious activity, so the cloud providers actually don't monitor or because they're cert or the customer themselves that there is some malicious activity going on, and once they're informed, then it's just a matter of shutting down the instances. So yeah, that can be done quickly as well. So in that sense, it makes it easier for the investigators, but harder for the criminals.
Yeah, so you're really touching upon the incident response and the forensics for those incidents. So who's really involved? Is it usually involving also the vendor? Is it just the company that was attacked? How much is the cloud provider really involved, typically?
Yeah, so for bigger companies, they usually have the incident response teams, and they would try to solve the problem themselves. But if they do have a requirement or need, they will contact the cloud provider, and they will assist with the investigation or incident response. And then if they need or some small, they might also contact or consulting or legal entities in order to either assist with their investigations. And sometimes there's more than one cloud provider involved, or they could be like a chain of cloud providers. So for instance, Dropbox is hosted, they host actually they use the services of Amazon Web Services. So it's like Dropbox is using Amazon. So in that case, if there is a breach, usually, as per my knowledge and what I've been told, is that the cloud providers don't communicate about these incidences unless it's like a high-profile case or something major involved. So what they do is they'll just give the customer the data that it requires. So say want a memory image or the image of the instance, they'll provide them with all the information. And then it's up to the customer to do whatever.
So really when you go to, oh, sorry. So really when you want to go and do a forensics investigation for a breach in a cloud application, what are the things that you find are the toughest things to deal with?
So when you're doing forensics in the cloud, so one of the major issues would be that as compared to the traditional, you can really acquire the machine. So
sorry, can you repeat that? You can't really, I'm sorry, the audio was not good. You can't really?
Sorry, you can't really acquire the physical machine.
Oh, yes.
Hardware.
Yes.
So yeah, that was easier in traditional, but here like you have to rely. So a lot of it is computer, and there are trust issues. So you have to really trust the cloud provider that whatever they do, you have to trust them as of now. But they are introducing features slowly that will reduce that trust level. Like for instance, AWS have their CloudTrail service, which provides logs of all their API calls, and so the customer can directly get those logs. So that reduces one layer of involvement of the cloud provider.
So just because our
the reliance on cloud providers right now.
Now, just because our audio has gone really gone bad suddenly, just to repeat what you said, you're saying that Amazon is now providing actually APIs to retrieve the logs, so that helps customers actually do their forensics investigation. They can actually acquire the logs even though they cannot acquire the machine itself.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And anything else that would be something that's unique for a cloud application?
So, example of multi-tenancy. So to accomplish dynamic provision of storage, the cloud providers provide shared resources among tenants. And in non-cloud environment, if you have data and you delete that data, it is likely, or there are chances that you may recover that data from the original hardware or the server. But due to the dynamic nature of the cloud, that is a big problem. So deleted data in that dynamic environment to be recovered is quite difficult. So multi-tenancy would be another issue. And then you have data spread across jurisdiction, physical, as legal implications then as well.
Yeah, by the way, I know I haven't asked you that before, but I'm wondering about if you are in a multi-tenant environment, could it be, or even, multiple applications running on the same machine, could it be that sometimes your storage is mixed up with another application storage, and for privacy reasons, you cannot even get your logs?
Well, if you're getting the log, so say if take the example of AWS. So if you have an account and you have record the API calls, now since it's your own account, you can retrieve those logs.
You do have a separation.
So yeah, you're using a separate virtual machine instance, and the other tenants will be using other instances. But if you acquire it, say physically, then yeah, you'll get other tenant data.
Yeah. So any distinction here between private and public clouds in that regard?
Yeah, so the public cloud, they're available to the general public, and they're owned by an organization that are selling the cloud services. So all these issues that we've discussed are relevant to the public cloud, are applicable to the public cloud. Private clouds, they're operated solely for a single organization. They draw resources from a distinct pool of physical computers or, a separate hardware. But this can be hosted either on-premise, off-premise, or, with a third party. But it's still different resources. You don't have shared tenants or multi-tenancy, so that problem is gone from there. So I'd say it's relatively easier. So in the private cloud, it's relatively easier to acquire the because it's dedicated to that. But there are instances where companies have the hybrid arrangement, so they use hybrid cloud. So say if my company is using the private cloud, but if there is a lot of load on my servers, so I could use something called as cloud bursting, where I'd send maybe the non-sensitive uh, activity to the public cloud to free up the space in my private cloud. So then that gets a little more complicated, where you're using both public and private, and then you have to decide on where to get the data from.
Okay, that's really, really helpful. So I want to ask you about, like, if I'm, let's say I'm a company, I'm a CISO at any company, and I want to really prepare myself, you know, understanding that my company might be breached at some point. What would you recommend that I do if I know I have applications in the cloud, I have data in the cloud? Is there anything I should prepare in advance?
Okay, so one is you can do before the prepare yourself, but that you have limited options. So we would generally advise clients or customers to at least be aware, first of all, of the incident response process of the cloud provider. And a lot of these cloud providers provide features that you have to go and manually enable. So for example, even the AWS CloudTrail logs, they're not enabled by default. You have to go and press the enable button, and then you can actually collect the logs. And during incident response, if you don't have these logs, it is quite difficult then, unless obviously you have an access management in place. Then they also have features for versioning, so you need to enable versioning. You should enable logging, and even snapshots can help, but they can be taken at the moment after the incident as well. All because if the logs are there, you don't want them to be corrupted by someone, or you need to make.
Neha, we lost your audio. We lost your audio for a second. So you said you need to enable logging. You said you need to enable versioning, and snapshot is something you can do after the fact, if I understand correctly. What was the fourth thing?
So you need to protect the integrity of the logs. So you want to make sure nobody corrupts the logs. So you want to ensure restrictions, and so you can encrypt the logs as well.
Great.
And yeah, and also you could work with log management partners. So say it's for example like Alert Logic. It provides it collects all your logs, and it enables monitoring of the logs. If there is they alert you when there is an incident, so there's abnormal activity. So you can leverage these partners as well. Right, perform due diligence of the cloud and check out their processes, how they operate, read their. So the security best practices white papers or something they should always read. They have loads of details in there. So that's before the incident.
Yeah.
And if after the incident you don't have many options, like if you have to be difficult, but if you've done all that, you shouldn't. I interviewed one of the cloud providers for my research, and I asked them, what's your biggest challenge when there is an incident? So they said that customer experience is actually their biggest challenge, and that they perform dead box forensics for days or months sometimes. So it is advised to the client, you have an incident, obviously you don't just go running to the cloud provider. You analyze the situation for maybe a few days. So yeah, there's so much data, and work with the incident response teams. Communication is key.
So I'm actually surprised that the a cloud provider says analyze the information first yourself and only then come to them and not alert them as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's and this is something that if you look at AWS has a video on incident response that they do at their reInvent conferences, and they actually said that do analyze the situation before, because companies do have it in teams usually, and sometimes they have someone leaked a password or something that's not so you wouldn't really need the help of the cloud providers in such a case.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's save the time and resources.
Yes, obviously. Well, that's really, really helpful. I really hope you can maybe add a comment to this blog later, just maybe with a link to this video and any resource you can provide to help users who really want to do this preparation. Maybe a link to your research. That would be really fantastic. And yeah, I'd love to hear more about some of these tools that you use to do this forensics. But really, really interesting. It sounds like you have an exciting job.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, the research has been very interesting in finding out these things from the cloud providers. And definitely, if anybody wants more information, any feedback, or provide me with information, that'd be great.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you for sharing, and we'll post it on Peerlyst.
Thank you. That was great.
All right. Yes. Have a good evening in Ireland. Okay. Thank you. All right. Bye.